Hey, Forge fans, it's the Forge Audio Network. I'm Anthony Urciuoli, your host, and this is the Focus on Forge. Forge FC heading to Halifax this week. They'll take on the Wanderers Friday at 6 o'clock Eastern Time. Forge coming off a 1-1 draw against Atletico Ottawa at Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton. And it was a week that saw Forge play twice. They won their Canadian Championship preliminary match against Outremont 2-0 and ended up finishing the week with a draw. Now a big opportunity for Forge as they take on the Wanderers, a club that's 3 points up on Forge and a club that is in a playoff spot right now. So Forge really want those 3 points. It's essentially a 6-point swing. Like I always say, never too early to look at the standings. I know Coach Bobby Smyrniotis and the players might disagree, but huge opportunity for Forge here. And in that match against Atletico Ottawa, Noah Jensen scored. And the goal was a beautiful goal. Great to see Noah, young player, get on the score sheet. But Noah Jensen's been doing a lot of good things leading up to that goal. And head coach and technical director of Forge FC, Bobby Smyrniotis, has been talking about the fact that Jensen it's great he scored, but even if he didn't score, he's been really good and his development has been on track for Forge.
Yeah, 100%. And Noah's a perfect example of that player who in the past years has been in here training, being used to the environment, and now he's doing it full time. I think one, it's you learn, and two, it's you learn to challenge yourself. So you're going to learn from Becker and Janssen, but you're also going to challenge yourself, knowing that they're your competitors to get on the pitch. And when your time comes, you need to be ready, and that's the one thing I think he's done excellent throughout this whole phase of the season, even preseason. His head is down, he's working hard, he's understanding the concepts, and he knows, it's always a challenge to get into the lineup, but when he gets in there, he's proving that he's doing the right things, and I think that only bodes well for him going forward.
Yeah, I mentioned Becker and I mentioned Urciuoli Janssen. Hojai Rapport is another midfielder with Forge that Noah Jensen could learn a lot from. But there's a lot of Becker in Jensen. Just the leadership. Noah Jensen was a captain when he played in Oakland for his college soccer. He was captain. He got his captaincy after just 2 seasons. He won a bunch of academic awards. He's a guy known for his leadership, for his hard work. And there's a lot of Kyle Becker in Jensen. And also, Jensen has some offensive ability. He scored 17 goals in college. So the offense is there, just like Becker, when it needs to be. Timely goals, as we saw against Atletico Ottawa. That goal that Jensen scored was right after the half while Forge was down at home. And I talked to Noah this week. Among other things, we talked about his game, getting on the score sheet, and some similarities to Kyle Becker.
Yeah, they're amazing guys to look up to and have in the locker room and to play alongside every single day, because even if it's little things every day that I'm picking up on, it adds to my game and I continue to improve all the time.
Do you see similarities in yourself and maybe a guy like Becker and what he brings?
Yeah, we definitely possess some of the same traits, but I still think that his maturity in the game is something that I can learn from, and he is definitely someone that I could aspire to achieve what he has achieved in the game.
Yeah, Noah Jensen has played himself onto this roster, and he's been given opportunity. He will continue to get these opportunities. The tactical demand, you heard it from Coach Bobby earlier. It's a little different when you're coming from the college program. And, Noah Jensen played for Coach Bobby at Sigma, so he's familiar with his coach. But the difference was the tactical demand just wasn't there. And Bobby admits that from him as a coach, there is a huge demand on those tactics. So if you're a player who's used to just doing his thing and playing off of instinct and just making kind of split-second decisions, when you add those tactics and that demand in there, it could create a little bit of hesitation. And that extra split second is the difference, especially when you get to the pro level and there's just not as much room out there and players close on you quick. All right, joining us now on the Forge Audio Network, Charlie O'Connor-Clark from CanPL.ca. Charlie, welcome.
It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, there's been a lot of focus around Noah Jensen this week, and obviously it seems kind of cheap just to, he scored, so it was a beautiful goal. Because Coach Bobby kind of emphasized that, yeah, the goal was nice, but there's a lot to like about Jensen's game. And he's certainly gotten a lot of people's attention. And you've been following the league as close as anybody, what do you see in Noah, like outside of that goal? What's this? He's kind of been building to this.
Yeah, he has. I've been really impressed with, Noah's ability to kind of, as a lot of, young players at Forge, he's able to come into the side and immediately have that grasp of the tactics and the role that Bobby Smyrniotis is asking of him. That game on the weekend is one where obviously Kyle Becker is sick, right? So he's not able to start, and Noah Jensen comes into the lineup there to get the start, and he really doesn't miss a beat. He kind of understands exactly what that role is that kind of box to box midfielder, and he's got, we can talk about how great the finish is on the goal, but also just to have the confidence to take that shot when you're a young player without much professional experience, for him to have that ball fall to him at the top of the box, and rather than wasting time, wasting the chance looking for a pass or something, he just takes it. And so I've been very impressed with his ability and maybe maturity to step into the team and fill that role so well.
Yeah, and he's been a captain before at the NCAA level with his he scored 17 goals in college. He's been given all academic accolades from the NCAA, so he's smart. He's a hard worker. He's got those leadership qualities. Those are things that you can't necessarily teach, and for him to come into the league and already possess those qualities, it has to have Coach Bobby and the rest pretty excited, I would think.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and I'm sure that's probably part of the reason that they brought him in the first place, right? That obviously Forge are very meticulous in their scouting and the kinds of players that they want to bring in. They make sure that they're players that can fit that mold and can fit into the way that Forge wants to play and that kind of identity. So clearly they would have been very familiar with him for a while and really been invested in bringing Noah into the side, and they would have known that this maybe it's happened faster than they might have expected, but they would have known that he can come into the side and he can fill those roles and he can be a very impactful player.
You mentioned Kyle Becker, and he has been sick. He was training this week, so I think he's good to go. But when you look at Jensen, do you see some similarities in Jensen and Becker? And Becker, by the way, is closing in on 100 matches in the CPL, which is crazy. We can talk more about that as we get closer to that milestone. But there looks like there are some similarities in their games.
Yeah, and it's crazy because you don't think of Forge without Kyle Becker, right? They haven't played a lot of games without him, so it's kind of strange to think of him having to have an understudy on his team. But if there is a player that maybe can do that role, it probably is Noah Jensen. It's interesting. He's maybe a little bit more of a box to box guy than Kyle is. Kyle really likes to create and get into the attack, but Noah Jensen has that kind of well-rounded skill set, that ability to read the play and to know where his teammates are on the pitch that Kyle Becker has. And he has the work rate too off the ball as well, which is just as important to what Bobby wants to do. Forge don't spend a lot of time without the ball, but that's partly because of the midfield and how hard they work to get it back when they don't have it. So I think there's definitely a lot of reason behind that in Noah Jensen becoming the kind of player who can fill that similar sort of role, because it's obviously been so important to the way Forge play, having Kyle Becker there. So when he's not there, they need somebody to fill that.
Bobby Smyrniotis, you've mentioned it too, but the tactical demands when you play under Bobby and for Forge, maybe just explain that a little more for some of the viewers and listeners. That what does that mean, tactical demand?
Yeah, well, Forge or Bobby has kind of been like one of the pioneers in the CPL of, for lack of a better word, forging a path in the tactics of this league, and just the way that they're able to maybe be very complex in the way that they play. Forge love to play with the ball and create opportunities with it, and they're able to kind of come at you in different ways. Whether they're playing with a back three as they did on the weekend, or whether they're playing with a four and a more regular front three. I think part of the thing that they look for most when they recruit a player is an ability to fill multiple roles and play multiple positions, right? You sign, for example, Abu Sissoko. People who watch the CPL would know him as a central midfielder like he was in Halifax, but he comes in and his first few games with Forge are at right back. You've got obviously Alex Janssen, who is again a central midfielder. He's playing center back a lot, especially with Daniel Crutzen injured. So just part of the identity of Forge is players that are just smart footballers and can understand what they need to do in different roles, and they're good enough on the ball to really, really get the job done wherever, because Forge just loves to play with the ball and to own the ball and dominate the ball. And so you need players that can really, make a great pass and they're comfortable with it really at any position on the field.
Yeah, and not many clubs could play without any natural center backs and still be effective. All things considered, they've done a pretty good job at keeping the ball out of their own net. Is that part of the possession game they play and the fact that the other club just doesn't get a lot of time with the ball?
Yeah, it's the best way to defend in soccer is to have the ball all the way at the other end of the pitch for most of the game, which is kind of the way that Forge pride themselves on playing. They will be 55-60% possession in almost every game that they play in the CPL, and they just play so much of it in the attacking half that Bobby said over the weekend, as you mentioned, they had no natural center backs in that game, but they dominated the ball so much that it didn't really they didn't really have to do a lot of defensive work. They weren't really on their heels a whole lot. They didn't have to, backtrack with Ottawa pressing on them or anything like that.
Right.
A whole lot of times. So I think that's why they're so able to adapt to those situations, because all of those players in that back three, two fullbacks and Alex Janssen in the middle, they're all players who can run with the ball and they can drive it forward. Which, if you're going to have the ball all game, that's going to work out for you.
Yeah, and as we kind of go into this weekend match, Ford with an opportunity to get 3 points on Halifax, and it's so early, and I happen to think it's never too early to look at the standings, just because if you can get points now, it's good to even bank them if you can. But Forge has been playing from behind a little bit. It's been a lack of finish, and how do you make sense of that? You have a skilled club who's used to scoring a lot of goals. They certainly have players that can score. What is it about that final touch that just hasn't been there for Forge?
Yeah, it's definitely just that last little bit of clinical finishing, that little bit of individual quality that you need in the final third, because you think of a lot of the goals that Forge have scored this year, and a lot of them have been screamers or just incredible goals from outside the box or something like that. But I think if you ask Bobby Smyrniotis, he would love to see this team score easier goals. He'd love to see them, just finish off those well-worked plays into the box. Somebody heads a cross in or just set piece or something. And this is something that he spoke about last year as well. Even last year when they scored tons of goals and they topped the table. Bobby would like to see them just finish off those plays a little bit more often, because they're so good at getting the ball to those dangerous areas, and it's that last little bit of finish. And I think you look at players like Taron Campbell and Woobens Pacius, they're very, very talented strikers. And I think maybe at the moment they're maybe overthinking at times or being a little too hesitant at times with the ball, because both players are very good finishers naturally. So I think it's going to come for them. And I think they just need to get that one easy one out of the way, and then maybe the floodgates will open, because they're talented players, but there's definitely something not quite clicking yet for Forge in the final third.
Right. Charlie O'Connor-Clark from CanPL.ca. Give us maybe an idea of what, for those that are checking out the Forge audio network, there is plenty of digital content for you within the CPL, and you and Christian Jack have been kind of on the front foot of that. Maybe just what can fans get from CanPL.ca from the digital side?
Yeah, there's loads of stuff. We cover every game very extensively. There's great, analysis, written content after every game, and then we have our show every Monday where we, recap the whole weekend at the CPL. And we have guests, so you can get to know some of the faces from around all of the clubs in the CPL, the coaches and the players. And I think that's what makes it really fun, is getting to know these guys. So there's plenty of ways to just get involved and to see faces and players of the CPL and highlights and things to get involved with all of it.
Yeah, what's nice is the league is just the right size right now that every Monday you can check out the podcast that you guys put out and get completely caught up on that week's event. So it's great stuff. Charlie, thanks so much for joining, and look forward to more of your content.
No problem. Thank you so much.
All right, now keep it locked to the Forge Audio Network. Plenty more coming this week. We have our match day preview coming up as Forge take on HFX Wanderers FC. We'll have the keys to the match, and we're setting up for another big week because Forge is playing this weekend. They're also playing midweek on the road in Quebec. They're taking on CF Montreal of Major League Soccer in the quarterfinals of the Canadian Championship. So we have plenty to talk about. Keep it locked on the Forge Audio Network.